Never say the forbidden word. I've always been fascinated by the obscure, the hidden things that people don't talk about. This obsession led me to a curious and mostly forgotten online forum, buried under layers of digital dust and disinterest. This forum, dedicated to paranormal oddities, had threads spanning back decades, but one post in particular caught my eye. It was simply titled, "Do Not Speak It." The thread was sparse, with only a handful of responses, most dismissing it as another internet myth. However, the original poster, going by the name EchoSeeker21, shared a PDF document they claimed was from an old library book. They urged extreme caution, stating, "Whatever you do, do not read the last word aloud. It has power." Curiosity overpowered my rationality. I downloaded the document, a scan of yellowed pages with typeface that suggested it was from the early 1900s. It detailed various supernatural entities and phenomena. It was intriguing but not unusual until the final pages. There, the text became a warning, discussing an ancient word believed to summon something unspeakable. The word itself was hidden, replaced throughout the text with a series of underscores. The more I read, the more an irrational part of me wanted to say the word, to prove to myself it was all superstition. But I resisted, a chill running down my spine, reminding me of EchoSeeker21's warning. Days passed, and nothing out of the ordinary happened. That was until I started noticing small, inexplicable occurrences. My things weren't where I left them. Lights flickered, and my computer would sometimes freeze, the screen filled with lines of underscores. One evening, while I was alone, the air grew inexplicably cold. I could see my breath as I sat at my desk. That's when the whispers began, soft and indistinct, growing louder, as if someone was behind me, trying to articulate something. The room felt crowded, as though filled with invisible presences. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. Then, my computer screen lit up by itself, displaying the document I had downloaded weeks ago. It was open to the last page, the forbidden word now fully visible. As if drawn by an unseen hand, my eyes read the word, and before I could stop myself, I whispered it. Silence fell heavy and suffocating. The whisper stopped abruptly, the temperature returned to normal, and for a moment, I thought I was safe. But then, a single loud knock echoed through my apartment. It came from the front door. I approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. Nothing. As I turned away, the knock sounded again, louder, more urgent. This time it was coming from my bedroom window. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I lived on the 10th floor. The knocks continued, moving around my apartment, from door to window to walls, surrounding me in a cacophony of dread. That's when the lights went out, plunging me into darkness. The air grew thick, and I felt it, something was here with me. Now I sit in the darkness, typing this on my phone. The knocks have grown quieter, but they haven't stopped. I don't know what I've unleashed or how to stop it, but I know I must find a way. I should have heeded the warning. Never speak the forbidden word. Never. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness that seemed to swallow every stray sound inside my apartment. The whispers had faded, but the knocking persisted, a slow, deliberate thud that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. My hands trembled as I clutched my phone, the screen's glow the only light in the engulfing darkness. I tried to call for help, but each time I dialed, the call dropped before it could connect, the signal swallowed by the oppressive air around me. I was isolated, cut off from the world by something far more sinister than a simple power outage. After what felt like hours trapped in my own personal nightmare, the knocks abruptly stopped. The silence that followed was even more terrifying. My ears strained for any sound, but there was nothing, only the pounding of my own heart. Then a faint, almost imperceptible whisper floated through the air. It was a voice, or perhaps many voices intertwined, speaking that word, the forbidden word, over and over in a hiss that seemed to seep into my bones. I covered my ears, but the sound was inside my head, a chant that wouldn't cease. Desperate, I opened my laptop, hoping to find something in the document that could help me end this torment. The screen flickered to life, surprisingly working despite the outage. The document was right where I had left it, but now scribbled in the margins were notes I hadn't noticed before, written in a frantic, shaky hand. "Do not speak the word," one note screamed in all caps. Another read, "It hears and it comes." But amidst the warnings, there was something else, a potential solution. The counterword read a scribbled line, pointing to a reference in another part of the book. "It can push it back." I scrolled through the document, my fingers numb and my breath shallow. Finally, I found it, hidden in a footnote so easy to miss. There was another word, an ancient term that supposedly had the power to reverse the summoning, to push back the darkness. With no other options, I whispered the counterword, my voice cracking with fear. The air around me stirred, and a gust of wind whipped through the room, causing papers to flutter and curtains to billow. The temperature began to rise, warmth seeping back into my bones. The oppressive feeling lifted slightly, the crushing silence breaking as the normal sounds of the city filtered in from outside. It seemed to be working, but I could feel that whatever had been summoned was not yet gone. It was retreating, pushed back by the counterword, but it was still there, lurking at the edges of my perception. As I sighed in temporary relief, my phone buzzed. A message appeared on the screen from a number I didn't recognize. It read, "You have not banished it. You have only angered it. Be wary." My eyes widened in horror as I realized the ordeal was far from over. Whatever I had called into my apartment was still part of this world, now possibly enraged by my attempts to repel it. I needed to find more answers, to understand what I had unleashed and how to permanently seal it away. The document hinted at other rituals, other words of power hidden in ancient texts scattered across the globe. It was clear what I had to do next. I needed to seek them out, to arm myself with knowledge that could end this nightmare once and for all. But as I prepared to delve deeper into the occult mysteries, I couldn't shake the feeling that the entity was watching, waiting for me to slip up. The game had changed, and it was now a race against an unseen, sinister force. With the stakes raised and a sense of urgency propelling me forward, I decided to leave no stone unturned. My journey began with the most accessible source of ancient texts, the local university library, renowned for its extensive archives on esoteric studies. The library was quiet, the kind of silence that amplifies every whisper and creak. I made my way to the special collections section, where the rarest manuscripts were kept under lock and key. I explained my situation to the librarian, an elderly woman with a skeptical raise of her eyebrow, who reluctantly granted me access to the texts I sought. As I pored over dusty tomes and cryptic manuscripts, hours melded into days. My eyes grew weary, my mind saturated with arcane knowledge that seemed as much a riddle as a solution. Finally, in a forgotten leather-bound book, I found a passage about a ritual that promised to cleanse the caller's domain of summoned shadows. The ritual required an object belonging to the summoned entity. But what could belong to something that had never truly been in our world? As I pondered this, my hand brushed against my pocket where I kept the printed PDF from the online forum. A realization struck me. Perhaps the document was now linked to the entity, a tangible connection to its presence in my world. Armed with this insight, I prepared for the ritual. It had to be performed at the stroke of midnight, at a location where the veil between worlds was thinnest. I chose an abandoned church on the outskirts of town, its ground reputed to be haunted by spirits from centuries past. Midnight approached as I set up the ritual circle with candles and symbols from the ancient book. My hands trembled as I placed the printed document in the center, a proxy for the entity. As the church clock struck 12, I began the incantation, my voice echoing in the hollow space. The candles flickered wildly as I spoke the final words, and a cold gust of wind swept through the broken, stained glass windows. The document in the center of the circle ignited, burning with a ghostly flame that gave off no heat. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the wind died down and the flame extinguished, leaving behind only a charred fragment of paper. Silence enveloped the church once more. I waited, holding my breath, expecting some sign that I had either succeeded or provoked further wrath. But there was nothing. Cautiously, I dismantled the circle and left the church, the weight of uncertainty heavy on my shoulders. Days passed without incident. The eerie disturbances ceased, and my life returned to a semblance of normalcy. However, the peace was short-lived. One evening, as I relaxed at home, my computer screen flickered on by itself. A single line of text appeared on the screen, underscored and chilling. More words remained to be spoken. The realization dawned on me then. The entity was not destroyed, but merely silenced temporarily. It was bound to the countless words I had yet to discover and speak. With each word tied to its essence, it had found a way to exist as long as knowledge was sought. As I stared at the screen, a mixture of fear and fascination took hold. I understood now that this entity was not just a summoned shadow. It was a guardian of forbidden knowledge, challenging those daring enough to uncover it. And so, the cycle would continue, a perpetual dance with the unknown. Each step I took to protect myself bound me tighter to the world I had dared to explore. The journey was far from over. It had merely twisted into a new path, one that I was compelled to follow, driven by an insatiable curiosity that had first led me to speak the forbidden word. Thank you for listening to my channel.